I'm going to be very candid and frank with you. I don't want to say I'm going to be honest with you because I'm always honest with the audience. But sometimes I hold back the full truth because I don't want to be alarmist. But I am so angry right now that I am beyond even physically showing it. I am so sick of our criminal government. I am so sick of the criminal special interest that would burn the country down if it gave them more power. And I am so sick of the compartmentalization where you can't even really hate the average big corporation or the average police officer or the average bureaucrat because they're just compartmentalized and know less than we do. They're not part of it. It's how big and complex the world is allows these con artists and these crisis creators, these wreckers, these vultures, to literally sabotage and screw our society over. 30 years ago, if there was an FAA air traffic disaster, people were fired. And if it happened again, they would fire the head of the FAA. In third world countries, if a dam broke and killed people, they would fire the head of the dam and sometimes arrest them. Now, when there's melamine in the milk in the U.S., nobody gets in trouble. They execute people in China for that. When our government screws up on purpose in Katrina and orders a stand down and a bunch of people die, FEMA got double the funding the next year in Congress for disaster relief. What does that incentivize? Screwing up. And then I see all the Bill and Melinda Gates, Monsanto preparation, like chickens with their heads cut off the last 2 years on Ebola and Ebola vaccines that are really live virus, nanotech, super science stuff. From eugenicists that run Planned Parenthood and fund all the big gun control groups and openly say they want to break up the family, hardcore psychopath, exterminist, beyond anything you'll ever see in a movie or read in a book. They make Hitler look unsophisticated. And then, I make a statement like that, and I think of all the data to prove it, and it makes my head spin. Makes my head swim. The Rockefellers that run the big tax-free foundations and run that whole program since 1906 and run the Bill and Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett Foundation, on record, funded the entire Nazi movement, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, everything. They run modern education. They founded the UN, gave them the property for it. They run every North American union, every Asia-Pac union group. They run everything, along with the British and Dutch royal families and the Rothschilds. And they are flaming crazy people. Now, they would argue, no, we're in control and running the show, and we work 15 hours a day to do it. And it's actually true. I mean, I guess we've gotten to the point just ceding it all to them going, okay, you can bring Ebola in, you can forcibly inoculate, you can come out with aerosolized vaccines and vaccines in food we can't escape, and we can see them hurting everybody, and no one stands up to you, so maybe it is survival of the fittest. Maybe social Darwinism is true. It's a cult with these people. David Rockefeller, I've had top scientists on and people this happened to, would in the 70s and 60s and things just show up at a university. Wouldn't even be Harvard or Princeton or MIT. He showed up there too, and would just show up in the lunch line to recruit, you know, the top 20-year-old scientist. But they're obsessed with test scores and who's the smartest, and then they recruit him into this cult. And they even tried to recruit my dad. It wasn't David Rockefeller, but it was the head of the botany department, into this literal eugenics cult. And I'm here telling you this. This is not a game. Do you understand how evil these people are? So I don't know if they released this Ebola. I know it's mutating like it's never done before, appears to be going airborne, and it kills 70% of people who get treatment in the West now, and more than that in Africa. And let me tell you, everybody thinks they're going to live forever. You think you're invincible? I buried 3 family members in the last 12 months, killed by this mystery respiratory crap. that's just common mutated staph bacteria in these hospitals. You go to the hospital to visit somebody, you get it, you die. Family comes to see you, they all get it, they start dying. And because it was a real plague, and the hospital doctor said they'd never seen death like this, and it was all over the country, nothing in the news except a few local papers saying a lot of deaths and the hospitals are overtaxed. Because when it's a real crisis, they don't tell you it's a real crisis. And when it's not a real crisis, they tell you it is by default. And we're watching in slow motion like a car wreck. Or like watching a kid strapped down by Ted Bundy have their fingernails torn out slowly. We are sitting here watching the government bring it in, watching the borders being wide open, watching the giant population being targeted by a tiny psycho elite who believe they're preparing to sweep the earth of the human disease. All their movies, all their TV shows, all their programs lauding the world without humans, life after humans, all these preparations. I don't think that this will probably even be the big one, as I've said for over a decade on air on this subject. I know how they work. I said they would do medium-sized and smaller bioreleases that kill thousands or hundreds of thousands in the West, millions in Africa, because that's where they've already gotten away with, 45% of some African countries having HIV. They go check the sexual organs of the young girls. They've never had sex. And then they trace it right back to the vaccines. Even BBC had to admit that. It's probably 6-7 years ago. They're giving it to them. So where they've got air superiority, where they control the media, where they've got the people under their control, it's just a bunch of Africans, kind of a deep-seated liberal racism, they can get away with giving 45% of the country HIV and killing them. But they'll have it rolled out, as I predicted, with an Ebola or a SARS or a super flu that kills tens of thousands at first, then hundreds of thousands the next season, then a medical tyranny's put in place. Everyone accepts the government's the boss, they're in control. We've got to have total quarantine, total forced inoculation, or you don't want to happen what happened in 2015, do you? The winter of 2015, where it spread all over the world and killed millions. I mean, you don't want that to happen again. You take your Bill and Melinda Gates shot, Alex Jones. And the public's not sophisticated enough to know they were behind the vaccine, behind the testing centers, in the country where it began to go viral and spread and mutate and go from 3 days to 21 days so it can spread further and farther before it's identifiable. But I may be wrong. It could go airborne this year. And then 70% of the people that get it will die. We're talking potentially about billions of dead people. And now they've got the armored vehicles in place, the checkpoints, the surveillance, all of it. I kept telling you for years, really about 17 years on the eugenics end, 10 years deeply on it. First few years, I wasn't that learned in these things. I knew a lot about it, but nothing like I do now. That once they got their grid in place, once this system was in place, it would be the death of us all. You've got world leaders, Prince Charles, Prince Philip, Queen Beatrix, Ted Turner, David Rockefeller, Senator Rockefeller, all of them talking about how they want to kill everybody. And before you idiot trolls out there watching make jokes about me starting to break down, listen, I got 3 kids. And all you stupid trolls who think you have a death wish, you won't really have a death wish when you're flopping around with blood spraying out both ends. Let me tell you something. The New World Order wants us all dead, and this could be it. I told you Homeland Security wasn't for Al-Qaeda. I told you it was for the Tea Party and gun owners and veterans and people that won't roll over to whatever it is they got planned. And you got Dr. Pianka that gets these world awards, and at the time headed up the UT Biology Department, coming out and saying it's coming soon, the airborne Ebola. I'm sad for my family, but it must be done. 90+% will die. I am ready. It is coming. And 90+% of the people at the Texas Academy of Sciences in Houston stood and cried in up to 5-minute standing ovations when he projected a wall of red skulls and said the mass death is coming. Young women, graduate students, ran and threw themselves at him like he was Elvis Presley or the Beatles. If my dad was in the top 125 test scores across the board in Texas, and then they took the top 6 or 7 out of that and brought them in a room at the University of Texas and said, well, there's really a world government. We're forming a eugenics operation, and it's not like Hitler did it. It's going to be for the betterment of humanity. Of course, my dad ended up meeting my mom, getting married, going the quick route to medical school. He was never in all of it. But then he wondered why over and over again the CIA would show up. We want you to work with us. We want you to work with us. We want you to work with us. It was only because he had been fingered early on, but he's nothing that special. Out of Texas every year, they're pulling hundreds of people for this type of stuff. They've got a huge army in on it. Do you understand that? Brought into it when they're 18 years old. They brought my dad in when he was a junior in high school. He was already in a summer program at UT when they brought him in. Little Davy Jones. You understand how widespread is this? This is the real world, boys and girls. This is the real planet. This is where we live. And they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't think they could get away with it. Now, I want to be clear. Ebola has only come in with patient 0, and we know infected one nurse in Dallas, another nurse in Spain. We're going to Joe Biggs here in a minute on the Texas border. We know that. But obviously, they were around a lot of other people. I think it's fair to say it's going to be more cases. And they did this deliberately to let it spread. That guy should have been locked up in level 5 containment day 1. Level 4. Here it is, Bloomberg. Detected Ebola hospital, or dedicated Ebola hospital sought after nurses' infection. U.S. and local health officials want to set up dedicated hospitals in each state for Ebola patients. Part of a new emphasis on safety and healthcare workers after a nurse caring for an infected patient in Dallas tested positive for the virus. Folks, the CDC goes on to say they're rethinking its existing infection control. No, they turned off the default, which we've been telling you for months. We told you when they brought in people with Ebola, it was going to spread from them, and it is now. See? It was on purpose. They study this. They're the experts. They knew. Our government wants Ebola spreading in America, and they think, here's the big one, that they're going to get away with it. Cops, firefighters, EMTs, medical workers, you're going to be the front lines of getting this. So remember what your loyalty to this suicidal system did when you get it and your kids get it. I'm sorry for your kids. I'll probably be blamed for trying to stop it. I understand how that works. I understand. So just remember, this is what giving into the New World Order does. This is what living in fantasy land does, okay? And for the general public, hope you enjoy it. Hope you enjoy all of it. Because if we don't put massive pressure on them now to immediately lock up everybody who's come in contact with these patients, we're talking thousands of people have to be locked up now. No, they're going to let that spread, and it's going to be millions. They want it to get to a critical mass. Then they're going to clamp down, and it's going to be hell. Now let's go to Joe Biggs down there with Josh Owens. And I want to be clear, folks. The border region is not even the place that's a hot zone. The entire of America is. Hospitals are the hot zones. Clinics are the hot zones, not the border. We're down on the border where people would come across who have it to go to the hospital. That's where the real hot zone is, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Biggs, what are you seeing down there? What's your take on what you've just heard me talk about?
Joe Biggs, Infowars.com. I'm at Andalusia Park in Mission, Texas. Now, right behind me is the Rio Grande, as you can see, and just across the water, that's Mexico right there. We're at the park where yesterday we were harassed by police for being here. And right now, if Josh pans around, you can see there's a police officer who's followed us over here to keep an eye on us. We're obviously media. We're sitting here filming, and they're following us. Meanwhile, tons of other vehicles are coming through, and no cops are bothering them whatsoever. It's just us, the journalists, out here trying to cover stories. That's because they've caught,
just like in Ferguson, the police. It's not looters that are the problem. It's press that are nonviolent. Everywhere they're being programmed that we're the enemy.
Yeah, because we're the ones who want to expose the truth, what's really going on. They hate that. They don't like that. We're the outlet for the truth for the entire people to see. They hate every single bit of that.
Absolutely. Tell us what else you've seen.
Well, yesterday I took Josh to a couple spots. You know, I've been out here to McAllen quite a few times over the months. And, you know, over the past few months, we've been reporting how there's just been nobody, wide open areas. We got out there yesterday. There was Army out there, Air Force. You know, there was a soldier on each Humvee on top with binoculars looking. helicopters in the air. The park here where I'm at, there's, I would say maybe 20, 30 police vehicles, boats set up, helicopters are flying by every now and then. They've definitely amped up their security, and I don't know if this is for the cry about, you know, with what Governor Perry did, trying to call in the National Guard, or is this because of what General Kelly said over the week, talking about how the Ebola virus had come into Central America and then essentially start spreading through there, and then pushing all the patients who know they've been in contact with somebody and are scared and want to try to live, so they're going to come into America. So who knows at this point, but they've definitely amped up security, and it's not easy to move around here as much anymore.
Well, that's good, because you're supposed to have the feds on the border. That's the only place they're supposed to be. You're supposed to have the Army on the border. Now, were those big Army or National Guard you saw?
The Army I saw was National Guard, because they had that little arrowhead patch with the T, so I think that's the Texas National Guard. But the Air Force, I'm not sure why they would be out here.
Well, what type of aircraft were they? Probably running infrared, or what do you think?
They just had a Humvee with some kind of device on top, so I'm not sure. Maybe some kind of listening device. That's all I could you know, come to a...
Well, great job on that. Try to get up there and interview some of those folks, or try to talk to their public affairs person.
Yeah, I tried to talk to some of them yesterday. They said we couldn't talk to them. We couldn't film them. So, I mean, they didn't want us to be around them anywhere
well,
near
by the way,
area.
they can't tell you that you can't film them. I mean, they can refuse an interview, but they can't tell you not to film them.
Yeah.
Did we get footage of them?
Yes.
Good job. Let's get those reports out. Well, you heard me ranting earlier, and you were on air a month ago saying the same thing when you were down on the border. The default was to put them in special level 4 emergency facilities they have under BioShield, 36 locations. They already are set up for this. It was never put Ebola patients in the mainline Atlanta hospital or the mainline Dallas hospital with people untrained to deal with it. Of course it was going to give healthcare workers the disease. So now they're letting them fly in, as reportedly people are coming off airplanes vomiting in Boston, New York, you name it, out of Africa. People are on strike now. We're into week 2 as airline workers freak out. Who knows how many Ebola victims that are carrying the disease as vectors are already in the U.S., Joe. What do you think's really going on here?
Well, you got to think, though, when this influx of the quote-unquote children were coming across the borders, what did we start building along the borders, Alex? All these different facilities to house them. Now we have that same facility that Don, Kit, and John Bowen and I filmed when they were putting it up and getting it ready to bring in. It's still there. I drove by it this morning. I saw it yesterday. It's fenced in. They still have the FEMA bus in there. There's not as many of the smaller Homeland Security buses, but they've still got something going on in there, and it's secretive and it's shut off. So that's definitely a spot where they could be doing something like that, disappearing people and putting them in there.
Well, that's what the Border Patrol from 2 different sources have told us, one on record, as this has been going on for months. And again, it'd be one thing if they were quarantining people. They should be public about it, so it's not secret detainment. But then they would have default shut down the flights. If they shut down the flights, we're quarantining people day 1 and grabbing folks at the border, I'd say, well, it's sad, but it has to happen. This is a very deadly disease. But instead, they're leaving it open while running what looks like a training op on the border to me.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing because, you know, all these other countries have nipped it in the bud already months ago, stopped those flights from West Africa. So the American people still are blind to the fact that this is a planned event. You know, our government's left the borders wide open down here where we're at now, and they've left the air completely open. They're letting the planes fly into our airspace from West Africa. They're allowing this to happen to create this huge outbreak, this pandemic. And like you said, once it gets to a certain point, that's when they enact those FEMA camps. That's when they start detaining people. Every time you have a cough, you look like you have some kind of respiratory illness. Then President Obama's executive order comes into play. Then you start being detained. And next thing you know, everybody's getting scooped up by the busloads and ushered off to some camp.
I think the verdict's clear. I'm going to open the phones up in the 3rd hour after Joel Skousen leaves us. But there's no other way to look at it. The government is run by criminals. They have allowed people to come in to create a big crisis so they can have political distractions from all of Obama's scandals and bring in medical tyranny and a precedent for forced inoculation with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's what this is. That's how you bring down a country. That's how you bring in tyranny. They used al-Qaeda that they funded and helped protect to bring in the police state. Now they're going to use the police state on the Ebola that they protected as well. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss, Joe.
Well, they're using this as a way, too, to push the flu shot. Just 2 days ago on Fox, on that Judge Jeanine show, Justice, she had on a doctor from New York City, and he said, you know, right now he's like, there's a huge scare because everybody that has a cough, they automatically get quarantined, brought into a hospital, and everyone's in a panic. And Judge Jeanine, she goes, well, what are we going to do to stop that? How do we stop the confusion? And he said, well, everybody needs to go get their flu shot. Everyone needs to get their flu shot. Everyone needs to get it. He said it like 3 times. So this is another way to push a vaccine.
Exactly.
And he said, this is how we determine now. He's like, if everyone gets their flu shot, then you're not going to get the flu. So the people that have flu-like symptoms, we're going to already know probably have Ebola, and that's how we stop that.
And by the way, let's walk through that fraud for new listeners. Look it up for yourself. The flu shot that they have predicted the year before, that's predicted mutation, has never picked the right mutation, and on record lowers your immune system by 50% for at least 1 year when you take it against other viral pathogens. If you don't believe me, just type into Google, flu shot lowers viral immunity, University of Ottawa studies, University of Texas studies, Harvard Medical Center studies. Okay, folks, it lowers your immunity. So would you want to take a flu shot if it lowers your immunity to other viruses for at least a 12-month period, Joe?
Well, this is the thing, though. I've been out of the Army almost 2 years now. Not once have I gotten the flu. When I was in the Army and I was lined up like cattle and forced to take the flu vaccine or the spray, I got the flu so many times. I would get the flu horribly 1 to 2 days later. Then I would finally get out of it, and by then I've missed a week of work and lost weight. Then I would get it again mysteriously. And then the military is like, why do you keep getting sick? You got the flu shot. Why do you keep getting sick? We're going to give you an Article 15. You're trying to malinger. You're trying to get out of work. And I'm like, no, this flu shot makes you sick. Why can't you guys see that? Meanwhile, the guys who are telling me that aren't even getting the flu shot. The higher-ranking people don't get it. They
on record, yeah.
They force it on the lower, the younger soldiers. So it's completely total BS. I mean, that thing, don't take it.
I don't know any general enlisted that are for vaccines because of all the nightmares they've been through. That's why the military is so awake. They have been used as guinea pigs. They've been given the anthrax shot, all of it. It's disgusting. Joe, we're going to go to break. I want to come back and get 5 minutes with Josh. And then, great job. Get out there, finish your reports, and then do that man on the street, and then come back to Austin. Former Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs now reporting from the border that General Kelly, the head of Southcom, says is where they expect masses of people with Ebola to come if it starts spreading in Central and South America. Thank you, Joe. We're going to go to break here and come back and get Josh Owen's take as well. He's the camera guy, but he's a great reporter in his own right. I want to get his view on this. Before we go any further, you know what I'm personally doing for my research for myself and my family? I went home early from work yesterday, and I went to a local community pool with my kids because it was sunny, and I got them 2 hours of sun. I left early. I got them early. I went and I got them sun. All the major studies, all of it, sun is so important. That's why stuff spreads so bad during the winter, because the different chemicals and different hormones and different vitamins that don't get released in your body and don't get produced in your body, it's not just vitamin D, without sun. So sun is numero uno. Can't live with it, can't live without it. Yeah, it ends up giving you skin cancer later, but that's just part of it. You're meant to get sun, folks. That's why white people that are from the north have white skin to get more of it, because you need it. If you're by the equator, you got black skin because you don't need more of it. Comprende, folks? Especially white people need sun. And then you got black folks with sunscreen and stuff, the studies on them, it's even worse when they don't get it. So you want to get cancer, you want to get sick, bottom line, don't get sun. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, that's what I'm doing for myself. I take the Survival Shield Nascent Iodine X2, InfoWarsLife.com. Unbelievable what it's personally done for me and my health. Super Male Vitality to work on my glands and block the estrogen mimickers that make you all bloated and weak and lethargic. Silver Bullet, colloidal silver. I just take it religiously now during the winter season, and it's certainly been helping me. DNA Force, InfoWarsLife.com. I take my 2 tablets right now. It's got the organic CoQ10. Just go read all the stuff it's got in it, the PPQ, the BioPQQ, all of it, ladies and gentlemen. I was in a pharmacy yesterday, and they were playing ads for BioPQQ and how amazing it is, but to get a prescription for it. A lot of companies put it out that way. I mean, this is a nutraceutical. This is not a game, ladies and gentlemen. InfoWarsLife.com. You'll get this powerful BioPQQ and more at the lowest price it is out there with everything that's put together that we found. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. I'm going to take a big, nice drink of this right now. I squirt it all into the water, mix it up, and take it 3 times a day, ladies and gentlemen. And it's had dramatic effects. You've heard the callers with what it's done for them, and it supports the broadcast, InfoWarsLife.com. Well, nurses are openly worried that Ebola is beginning to go airborne. We'll get Joel Skousen's take on this coming up. Josh Owens, cameraman, but also reporter for InfoWars Nightly News, InfoWars.com, and PrisonPlanet.com, is down on the Texas border, right on the Rio Grande with Joe Biggs. Give us your take, Josh, on what you've witnessed down there.
Well, yesterday when we were out here, we saw that the security, like Joe said, has been amped up. And when we were in Arizona, when we were in California, all along the border where we've been, we haven't seen, I mean, basically the border has been wide open. Not to say that the border isn't still wide open, but just in this area, in McAllen, where it's been open before, there seems to be heightened security, heightened border patrol, heightened police. And as people can see, the video we posted yesterday, we were pulled over just for simply driving around and shooting video, which is sad because it's not surprising to us. At least it's not surprising to me because it happens all the time. But if you really step back and look at it, it's pretty ridiculous. When you're driving through a park, you're driving through a public place, even if it's not a public place, you're in an area trying to report what's going on. And there are plenty of other people driving around here. They're not getting pulled over. They're not getting followed. We still have this cop right over here in front of me that's still sitting there just watching us. And I mean, obviously, we're being criminals by standing here talking. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous, and I don't see how anyone could disagree with how ridiculous that is.
There is a war on the press everywhere, and the police are being ordered, whether it's New York City or McAllen, Texas, it doesn't matter. Look what happened in Ferguson, where we were even there, especially at first, more pro-police as we're against looting and rioting, and then they would attack Jakari, attack Joe, attack you, attack Al Jazeera, and then now they've got folks in St. Louis running around looting. Racially motivated. It's really spiraling out of control, and we're not even sending reporters because we'll just be attacked by the crowd and by the police. I mean, it's like in America, the most horrible thing in the world is the press. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's sad when you come to expect it every trip we go on. You come to expect to just be harassed. And like you were saying, with all the nurses being concerned about Ebola, my mom is a phlebotomist near the CDC in Atlanta. She's, maybe 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. And she's concerned. And, they are, I guess, forced to get the flu vaccine at the office. They can choose not to, but, they're almost chastised. But
well, then they've got to wear a mask all the time, which is a great idea. I'd want to wear a mask all the time working in one of those sick hospitals with all those deadly bugs in them.
I would much rather wear a mask than have thimerosal, mercury, metals shot into my body, which is going to give me the flu. Everyone I know that gets the flu has gotten the flu shot.
My mother used to be a triathlete like 15, 20 years ago. It almost killed her to get the flu shot. There's a reason nobody likes vaccines, because you take it, you get deathly ill.
Exactly. And like you've said, we'll see what happens. I mean, it seems like if Ebola keeps spreading and more people keep getting it, which it seems like is highly likely, because they're quarantining some people, but it seems like other people, it's almost like the press conference we were at in Dallas. It was just, well, it's not a big deal. Someone has to basically vomit into an open wound for you to get Ebola, which everyone knows is total BS and is not true at all, because these nurses who are wearing the proper safety gear are still getting Ebola. And I'm sure that they're, this isn't a fact, but it's just what I believe, is that at some point they're being pressured to come out and say, oh, well, I accidentally touched my face. I broke protocol. It's my fault. When in all honesty, they're trying to make it seem as though Ebola is this.
Look, somebody puts rags with all the blood and stuff. Some of it gets aerosolized. It goes out the door. Somebody breathes it. That's what's happening. And that's not even technically airborne. It's in a particulate. But the question is, will the virus get to the point of actually being airborne? And that's what nurses are now asking. We'll play that video coming up and talk to the expert on strategic relocation, safe places in the U.S., Joel Skousen. I'm Alex Jones, your host, Infowars.com. Alex Jones here to break down some exciting developments in the area of research concerning supplemental iodine. It's nothing less than phenomenal. I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. And I used some of the mainline iodine supplements and they upset my stomach and I had some issues with it. Until I discovered a product being developed by Dr. Group, who I was already interviewing as an expert on my radio show, and I began taking the product before he actually rolled it out. You now know it as Survival Shield True Nascent Iodine that your body can really absorb. Then, about a year ago, he said, listen, if you think this is powerful, I'm going to come out with rare earth, deep earth crystals that are incredibly powerful that no one else has as a source for their iodine from between 7,000 and 12,000 feet, literally drilled out of the ground. You put it on a hot plate and it turns into the pure gas. No one else has 99.99% pure iodine. And the results that I personally have had have been life-changing. I was over 270 pounds. And with the iodine, exercise, and better diet, I have lost now more than 50 pounds total, and I'm continuing to lose the weight. I have more energy, my libido, all this crap came out of my skin. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. This is innovating. This is trailblazing. And the best part is it helps fund Infowars.com, the radio show, the TV show, the whole media operation promoting true libertarian ideas. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox special at InfoWarsLife.com.